Hi everyone, and welcome to Lipstick on a Rig. Today we're doing something a little bit different and we're making this sort of funky wine tote. And for this project, I'm going to be working with some size 4 medium weight acrylic yarn. And this is just the Big Twist Value brand and the color is burnt orange. I'm also going to be using a size H or 8 or 5mm crochet hook. And we're going to begin with a magic circle. So drape your tail over your working yarn and insert your crochet hook in the loop, then yarn over and pull through that loop. And we're going to start with a chain 2, and then we're going to place 12 double crochets inside our magic circle. And once you have your 12 double crochets, then you're going to pull on the tail to tighten the gap in your magic circle. And from here, we're going to skip our chain 2 altogether, and we're going to slip stitch into our first double crochet. And you always have the option to work over your tail by draping it next to your stitch. We're going to begin by chaining 2, and for row 2 we're going to place 2 double crochets in each stitch in our row, starting with the current stitch where we placed our slip stitch, and we want to avoid working in the slip stitch at the end of our row. So when you get to the end of your row, you should have a total of 24 double crochets in your chain 2. And at the end of your row, you're going to skip your slip stitch and your chain 2, and you're going to slip stitch into the top of your first double crochet. From here, we're going to chain 2 again, and the pattern for row 3 is going to be to alternate between placing 1 and 2 double crochets going all the way around our row. And again, just like the last row, the first stitch of this row is the current stitch, and we want to avoid working in the slip stitch at the end of our row. So when you get to the end of the row, you should have a total of 36 double crochets. And at the end of our row, we're going to skip our slip stitch as well as our chain 2. And we're going to slip stitch into our first double crochet. And the pattern for our next row is going to begin by chaining 2 and then diving into the back loop only of our next stitch. We're going to place a double crochet. Then we're going to place 1 double crochet into the back loop only in each stitch in our row. So when we get done, we should have a total of 35 double crochets plus our chain 2. And at the end of your row, you're going to skip your slip stitch as well as your chain 2, and you're going to slip stitch into the top of your first double crochet. And the pattern from here is going to be to place 1 front post stitch around our first 3 double crochet stitches here. So I'll show you how to do that. Begin by yarning over, and then you're going to insert your crochet hook between your chain stitches and your first double crochet. And you're not working in the top portion of the stitch, but instead you're working in the gaps between your posts. So right here. Then you're going to loop your crochet hook around the post like this. Then you're going to yarn over and pull up through the post, and then yarn over and drop 2 loops at a time to finish out the stitch. So we're going to repeat that in our next 2 stitches so that we have a total of 3 front post stitches. And once you have your 3 front post stitches in place, then we're going to work backwards around our chain 2 stitch, and we're going to place a triple crochet post stitch here. So we're going to do that by yarning over twice and then inserting our crochet hook around our chain 2, just like we were doing with our front post stitch. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through the chain 2, and then yarn over and drop 2 loops at a time to finish out the stitch. And so now we're going to start the repeatable part of our pattern. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip our next stitch all together. Then we're going to place 1 front post stitch in the following 3 stitches. And then working back in our skipped double crochet stitch, we're going to place that triple crochet front post. And so now your pattern should look something like this, where you have your 3 front post stitches and then that triple crochet post stitch crossing over them. So from here, we're just going to repeat that pattern going all the way around our row. And when you get to the end of your row, you should have a total of 9 of these sections with your crisscross. And when you get to the end of your row, we're going to begin a continuous loop pattern. And that means we won't be starting and stopping our individual rows, but instead our pattern is going to act like a spiral. So what we're going to do is we are going to dive right into our first front post stitch with another front post. And you're going to work around the post of the front post stitch just like you did around the post of the double crochet. We're going to place 1 front post stitch around our next 2 front post stitches. And working backwards, we're going to place a triple crochet post stitch around the post here. So I find it helpful to turn my work and then yarn over twice and insert your crochet hook around the post and then just work the stitch like normal, dropping 2 loops at a time. And for the repeatable part of the pattern, we're going to skip this triple crochet post stitch and place 1 front post stitch in our following 3 stitches. And then again, working backwards in this skipped triple crochet post stitch, we're going to place another triple crochet post stitch. And that is it. That is our pattern for the entire body of the wine tote. And you're going to want to follow this pattern for a total of 20 rows. So from here, what we're going to do is create our little pockets for our tassels. So we're going to dive right into our next stitch, and we want to insert our crochet hook in the front loop only. We're going to place a single crochet there. And then we're going to chain 2 and we're going to skip our next 2 stitches and diving right into the front loop only of our 3rd stitch, we're going to place a single crochet. We're going to chain 2 again and then skip our next 2 stitches. Diving into the front loop only of our 3rd stitch, we're going to place a single crochet. So we're just going to repeat that process going all the way around our row. And when you get to your last 2 stitches, you're going to chain 2 and then you're going to slip stitch into the first single crochet of our row. And you should have created 12 of these little pockets going all the way around. So now we're going to fold those pockets that we just created forward. And you can see here that this is our current single crochet, and we worked in the front loop only of it. So from here, we're going to insert our crochet hook in the back loop only of that original stitch, and we're going to place a slip stitch, a chain 1, and then a single crochet there. And from here, we're going to place 1 single crochet in the back loop only of each stitch in our row. And that should push these little pockets for our tassels forward and allow us to continue working behind that. So go ahead and place one single crochet in the back loop only of each stitch in the row, and you should have a total of 36 single crochets. And when you get to the end of your row, you should see your slip stitch and your chain 1, and you're going to skip all of that and slip stitch into your first single crochet. And for our next row, we're going to chain 1 and place one single crochet in each stitch in our row, going all the way around. So we should have a total of 36 single crochets when we're done. And at the end of our row, we're going to skip our slip stitch as well as our chain 1, and we're going to slip stitch into our first single crochet. And we're going to begin our handles. So we're going to start by chaining 9. And once you have your 9 chains in place, then we're going to skip 9 stitches and we're going to place one single crochet in our 10th stitch. Then we're going to place one single crochet in our next 8 stitches so that we have a total of 9 single crochets. And once you have your 9 single crochets, then you're going to chain 9 again. And again, you're going to skip 9 stitches and place one single crochet in the 10th. And from here, we're going to place one single crochet in each of the 8 remaining stitches in our row. And for this row, the slip stitch at the end of the row counts as a stitch. And so from here, we're going to chain 9 again. And then we're going to work a single crochet in each of our previous row's single crochet stitches, starting with that first one. So you should have a total of 9 single crochets. And when you get back to your second set of chain 9s, then you're going to chain 9 again. And again, we're going to work right in our previous row's single crochet stitches for a total of 9 single crochets. And we're going to repeat that last row 4 times. And once you have your 6 rows of chain stitches to form your handles, then what we're going to do is we are going to place 9 single crochet stitches over all of these chains. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So go ahead and grab all 6 rows of your chains. Then you're going to insert your crochet hook between the body of your wine tote and all of your chain stitches. Then you're going to yarn over and pull all the way up. So you want your stitches to be loose. And then you're just going to yarn over and drop your 2 loops. And from here, we're just going to repeat that process 8 more times so that we have our 9 single crochets over our handle chains. And once you're done placing your 9 single crochets, then you're going to place one single crochet in the 9 stitches between your handles. And once you make it around to your second handle, then we're just going to repeat that process of placing our 9 single crochets over the handle. And again, we're going to place our 9 single crochets between our handles. And we're going to place one slip stitch in our next stitch, and then we're going to cut and tie off our yarn. And I am going to hide my tail down the inside of my wine tote. So now it's time to attach our tassels as the last step. So for each tassel, you're going to need 4 strands of yarn cut to about 8 inches. So go ahead and pull one of your strands of yarn out, and then you're going to draw 3 of your strands of yarn up through the gap that you created in your tassel hole. So these are where you placed your chain 2 stitches. and you want to pull them down so that they're relatively even. So now what we're going to do is we are just going to drape one end of our strand of yarn up near the top here where we folded our strands over. And we're going to create a loop with that strand, and we're just going to sort of pinch the intersection of that loop and hold on to it there. Then we're going to drape our yarn around all of it. So we want to be sure that we're draping this around our loop, around our strands of yarn, and around that sort of starting tail there. And once you've draped it around a few times like this, then you're going to insert your fingers in your loop, and you're going to pull the end of your strand of yarn through your loop like this. Then you're going to grab the starting and ending tails and pull them both nice and tight. And you might need to pull on your strands of yarn to make this look exactly the way that you want. But once you've gotten this to look exactly the way you want, then you can cut your starting tail off and allow your ending tail to become part of your tassel. And so there you have it. You have created one of your tassels, and you just need to do that going all the way around your row, and you should have a total of 12 holes for your tassels. And I recommend waiting until the very end to trim these up. And feel free to add additional tassels anywhere where you see a large gap. And please let me know in the comments below what you thought of this pattern and if you ran into any issues while you were making this. Thank you so much for working on this with me, and I hope you have a wonderful, awesome day.